Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this Friday's edition of SafeDefend Live. I'm Phil Nichols, joined today by founder Jeff Green. Jeff, how are you, brother?
Oh, excellent. Happy
Good.
Friday.
It is a happy Friday. Well, K-State, Kansas State fans are celebrating today. They're going to the grade A.
They celebrated last week when KU lost, and they're celebrating this week when K-State won. So
I read an article. I read, of course, SafeDefend located in Kansas, but I read an article that said a lot of brackets K-State fans are leading because they chose themselves to go all the way, and they chose KU to get beat early.
Oh, that's probably true.
That's probably true. Stacking early for them, so that's good. But
they probably just recycle the same bracket every year when they make it into the NCAA. They probably just have hope KU loses and hope K-State wins. So
but KU fans do the same thing.
Actually, I have K-State going to the Elite Eight, but
I had them going to the 8.
Yeah.
They're a good basketball team.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but they are. Yeah,
they're a good basketball team. Well, hey, a lot of crazy things going on, some exciting things, a lot of stuff on the school side we'll touch on briefly. Unfortunately, maybe talk about a couple of situations that occurred this week on schools around the country. But they'll really want to talk about the corporate training. There's a lot of good things going on right now with corporations, companies around the country with SafeDefend. So however you want to enter into that, I'll let you do that.
Yeah, no. So that's why I'm here today is because we've got Greg out on the road. He's actually working on some threat assessment and identification stuff up in Findlay, Ohio right now. But he's been super busy on the corporate training side, working with one of our clients that we've had a relationship with over the last few years and doing a substantial number of training at their various locations and getting them up to speed on best practices, trauma response. They're in a kind of a unique situation. They're located in a small community in Missouri, and they had their city disband their police department. So they're relying on county response, which know that those officers are super capable. It's just a matter you've just increased your response time substantially. If you need help coming, and there's just not going to be nearly as much. And so making sure the employees understand best practices are trained and comfortable in how to respond is critical in those types of environments. So we're happy to be able to help and bring some value there. They're stacking training on training because it's definitely needed.
Well, I can tell you, I live in the great state of Oklahoma. A very sad year athletically for the colleges in Oklahoma, but we'll bounce back.
Well, and you've got the SEC coming, so Oklahoma should just dominate in the SEC. So
you know what? I think beyond the top 2 or 3 schools in the SEC gets very average when you get past the 2 or 3 top schools.
That might be true.
I think OU will be just fine. I think Texas needs to be more worried than Oklahoma.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there might be a Nebraska situation, but I digress.
There's some wonderful there's some wonderful programs, and when I say in Oklahoma, unfortunately, over the years, we've had a lot of stuff that's happened in private business.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just and every state has their story, but this is corporations I think get overlooked sometimes, and I think it's not top of mind necessarily when they're thinking of things to do to ensure employee safety. But I think that's changing. I think there's more and more companies that are starting to realize this is very, very important. And so I think that's something we'll continue to see. That left of bang, right of bang we talk about, it applies to everything. It applies to corporate side. Take your school counselor, your teachers, and it's your HR department, your frontline supervisors. They're those folks that have to set and try to figure out, hey, is there something going on here with an employee that we need to get out ahead of?
Right.
To try to get them the help they need or to make it a safer environment. So I think corporate training is going to continue to grow.
Absolutely. And that makes all the difference, right? So, the goal is not to be able to respond effectively to a crisis situation. The ultimate goal is to prevent it.
Right.
And so, as much as possible, now they're not all preventable. That's just the world we live in. But some and maybe even many are. And if having that ability to and that training to identify, to intervene, to prevent can make a huge difference. Now, you still need to be ready to respond if, God forbid, something bad does happen.
Yeah.
But truly, like you said, whether it's in the school, whether it's in a private sector, whether it's in a public government type building,
Church,
church, anything, anytime we can identify early, intervene early, and prevent, that's the ultimate goal in saving lives.
Well, and I think, you go back and you look at all the different situations that have kicked off, and unfortunately we have way too many to choose from that we could break down. But, I think it still comes down to communication, awareness, people not being afraid to speak up, to keep it in layman's terms, right? If you see somebody that's in distress, or you see somebody that you think needs help, they probably do. I mean, you can trust your gut. I mean, we usually are able to pick out those folks who are struggling, who just need a hand, right? And I think that's, especially when you look at many times the backstories, right? There's always a backstory to these things. And I know many people sit around and go, well, how did somebody not see this? Well, usually people did see it. Right. They just didn't want to be that person. They just didn't. And I'm not being critical of those people. They made a decision that they thought was right at the time. But I think we've got to be more conscious of the people around us and what they're going through.
Yeah. And typically there's multiple data points, right? So, not always, but typically there's multiple data points that says someone could be on a path to violence. And so just being more cognizant of those data points, those signs. Just because somebody says one thing doesn't mean that they're on that path. But at the same time, if you start seeing multiple things that are of concern, there's a chance that violence is on their mind, and then that's when we really need to intervene and prevent at that point. So
I was having this conversation yesterday, Jeff, with a friend of mine. He lives in Kansas, and he had saw the story. We unfortunately had a young man who is no longer with us, was horribly hazed at a high school here in Oklahoma. And, I told my friend, I said, sometimes people don't realize you can do things to people that drive them to do something that they would never do.
Right.
I mean, everybody has a breaking point. And, being conscious of talking to our kids about bullying. I'm not talking about playground, stupid kid stuff. I'm talking about vicious hazing. I mean, bullying it's different than it used to be, Jeff. I'm preaching to the choir. You're a public educator for a career, but I know my wife, before she retired from teaching, bullying or being, mean kid, it looks different than it used to. I mean, it's very aggressive.
Yeah, and you're right.
Social media has created a lot of that, right?
Absolutely. Well, it makes it a little more anonymous. It makes it, but it also makes it more public at the same time. Yeah. The bullies can be a little bit more anonymous, but everybody else gets to see it. And without a doubt that, those are contributing factors to, a variety of responses, whether it's to respond to the violence at the school, whether it's to take one's own life, whether it's, sending someone down a really, I won't say necessarily always dangerous path, but not
the preferred path for sure.
A path for their future that really doesn't allow them to maximize who they could have been. So
that left the bang could be the thing, Jeff, that allows somebody in that situation to go help that young person to prevent them from taking their own life.
Absolutely.
This isn't always about, and that's one thing I'm so happy about what SafeDefend does. This isn't just about shootings. This is, it's about really, it's about intervention. It's about education. It's about helping people, have a better life. I mean, it really is. I mean, you got to have the other stuff there, but if we can get there early, like you've said so many times, Dr. Becky said so many times, we always talk about, if we can intervene and help, we can prevent so many of these tragedies from ever happening. I mean, that's the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, that tragedy doesn't have to necessarily mean an active killer comes in and
Right.
shoots up a school. That tragedy is that suicide. That tragedy is that loss of quality of life that someone could have had down the road. So, schools, and I will say this, sometimes they get a bad reputation, but schools definitely do, for the vast majority, have the best interest of students in mind and are really trying to do the best they can. They have been overwhelmed by the system and what they have to not only support academically, but support emotionally, the mental health side of things, the counseling side of things, the social emotional aspect, the behavioral aspect. We've piled a lot onto our schools, and it makes it more and more difficult for them to be able to effectively intervene because of resources, because of training, because of whatever. And really, Dr. Vecchi has put together some fantastic approaches, and we're going to be doing more and more with this down the road as well. But being able to help and support schools, businesses, whoever, easily, or not maybe necessarily easily, but provide early identification to potential issues, allow early intervention as much as possible, and with the ultimate goal of prevention of any crisis situation with the student down the road. So, Dr. Vecchi has brought an aspect that we hadn't had before, and we're incredibly excited about having that knowledge base and opportunity to make a difference. SafeDefend will always be necessary, unfortunately, in the sense that we can't prevent all bad things from happening, but man, if we can prevent even 10% of them from happening, or 30 or 40 or 50 or more, what a difference that'll make in this world.
Well, and I think, to echo what you said about Dr. V, he's wicked smart at what he does, has a lifetime of experience, but I think what makes him so effective, he has a ton of common sense.
Yeah.
I mean, when he's out there talking to people, we've all seen it, and anybody that's been trained by him has experienced it, but and we're building out our training team as we speak, but because he can't be everywhere himself, but he can sure lead and direct and mentor and spread that Dr. Vieg knowledge around the organization, SafeDefend. But I'll tell you, the fact that we're looking at catching it before that, it's so different than what everybody else is doing.
100%.
So different. And I think, we've got enough of the lanyards that don't work because Bluetooth isn't connected. And we got enough of all these different things that people try to, the little devices. And I think people are starting to figure that out. I mean, I think a lot of those things where, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but this is an important subject. A lot of people out there try to cut corners. You can't cut corners on things like this because, there's been countless examples of where situations have kicked off and wireless isn't working, or this is out of range, or this is down, or that there's all this miscommunication or false alarms, or all this stuff that's happened all over the country. You've got to be sure you're putting the right kinds of things in front of your people so that they're prepared when something like this happens, and they're prepared to identify so they can prevent it from ever getting there. Well,
there is no other company that is as vested in the prevention side and the response side as SafeDefend. Most are vested in the response side, and don't do it nearly as effectively. But at the same time, very few are working on the training of the intervention and prevention side of things. And I say this over and over again. It's one of the most exciting things about being a part of this company is the fact that we really are the alpha and the omega. We are looking from the beginning to the end. How can we make a difference all the way through? No other company does it.
Nobody else does it. All right, my brother, I'm going to give you last thoughts. Anything you want to share coming up with SafeDefend? Any good vibes you want to throw out there for the Wildcat faithful? I know you're a big Jayhawk fan, but can you show them a little love?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's the first time in a long time that I've kind of had my weekends get freed up during the tournament time. So, it's good for K-State fans to have something to do for the
That's
next.
a new experience for them. I don't think they've been to the Final Four since 1960 something. I heard.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I want them to get there. I'm pulling for them.
Yeah.
For Big 12, I'm pulling for them.
You know, as much as it pains me to say, as a lifelong Jayhawk, that you know what, this new coach for K-State is doing some good stuff. You know, they're gonna be putting some pressure on KU to make sure we keep up in our game too, because I think he's gonna be doing some good things for K-State for a long time. So it's good for them. Good for them. I know the feeling of what it feels like to keep marching through, and so it is a good feeling, no doubt about it. Hopefully we'll get some good weather. We'll get some good positive things this weekend coming through for everybody, and you know, always available if anybody has any questions or needs anything from SafeDefend. We're here.
Well, brother, we appreciate you. Appreciate what the team's doing. We look forward to talking to y'all again next Friday, 9:30 Central Time. SafeDefend Live every Friday right here at Second Banana Media. SafeDefend Live. Jeff, have a wonderful weekend. We'll talk soon, brother.
Sounds great. Take care.
Take care.